So our next eminent speaker is Mrs. Meera. She is robotic transformation lead for P2P vertical in HP. Today, she will speak on the topic automation during this pandemic time, skills of present and future. So over to you, Meera.
Thank you so much for this warm welcome, and I hope the break was a good one for all of you to grab your beverage or the choice of a snack. What I think the topic today is quite interesting because personally, I feel like I've learned a lot. I've learned way too much from the last 2 years than I think I have in my lifetime. And that's just because I feel like there is a whole big list which I have for my personal life. And then there is a big list of professional life, right? Things that I felt I would learn being married or being in a relationship or being a mother. I felt like would teach me, but what pandemic has taught me is completely, I guess completely goes off the charts for sure. So I start with a quote for today's session saying, learn continually. And if anything, the last 2 years has been just that. There's always that one more thing that we can learn. And that's a quote from Steve Jobs. I truly love it. And I want to start this session with that quote because I'm hoping that one more thing today you can learn from the session or my experience that I'm going to talk through. And hopefully I will learn just sharing it. Sometimes even talking it aloud kind of gives in a lot of perspective. So looking forward to that. Feel free to ask your questions in the chat window. I'm sure the guidelines have been set, but I also encourage you to please pause me and stop me if you have any questions. And at the end, I'm more than happy to even share my LinkedIn coordinates. We can always be in touch because some of the conversations, great conversations rather, have happened sometimes after a session has been completed. So I'm more than happy to do that as well. So with that, if you were to start, for some reason, I think because of the session being what it's been tagged to, I would also like to add a little disclaimer that automation predates COVID. And I used to always have this great pride in me to say, hey, I'm from automation at a time when, people didn't understand that completely. Even though automation as a term has existed for almost 40, 50 years now. If we go back and look at the first VR headset, if you look at the first bot, you would actually be surprised when it was, when it all came into being. So while I'm definitely not that many years in automation, but I think in the corporate world, from the time that automation has started, I have tried to be in that field, and that's something that excites me because there's just so much to learn from it. So I just would like to start with a quote that, I also like to kind of add the disclaimer that automation does predate COVID, and we've seen a ton of automation that has happened. While now I think the use case has just changed quite a bit. Our definition or our anomaly has been the 2020, right? I mean, we used to always say by the year 2030 this would happen, by the year 2040 this would happen. And these are predictions that have always been there when you look at automation. That number that you see on the screen, I love talking about that number because that's 95% is work that will still be people dependent and 5% will be automated. Now, what's been changing again, keeping the lessons learned from the COVID and during the pandemic has been that, the 5% has been challenged greatly. And that when I say 5% is the use cases that we never thought existed, in places we never thought existed. We never thought this would be the field that would, take in the early adoption, or this would be the area that we would get into. What is surprising and what is interesting is that those fields and those areas and that 5% sector has been just going crazy. It's going off the entire predictions that have come in so far, and it's interesting to see how stress does a lot to us, right? I mean, in a situation when we are pushed and we're giving tremendous amount of stress, we think differently. We start to adapt a few things, we start to change our perspective. And that's what this has done. So if you see this, I guess everybody is used to this term, right? The new norm or the new normal, or this is what it is. What it has done in the last 2 years is that it has that entire prediction of saying by 2030 or 2040 we will see ourselves to be here as per the predictive analytics that were put in place for automation world. What we have started to see is that the acceleration at which companies have started moving towards automation has been tremendous. And that's just because people are seeing certain use cases, people are seeing the challenges that they faced in the last 2 years, and they want to see how they can fix it. And this is just one of those things that is happening. So what you see, and this is interesting because I love, I just pulled this, just before this presentation, I was trying to find pictures of factories which were pre-COVID. As you can see, hygiene was always important. I don't think even my workplace or places that I worked in, hygiene has ever been any less important. But it's just that it was one of the to-dos. It was never everything and all, right? I mean, our entire decision making did not revolve around that. What has happened is that during the last 2 years, first of all, I think I should have shown you guys an empty spots, right? Because what has happened is that, during the lockdowns and during the shutdowns of each of the countries, and some of the predominant factory owning spaces have closed down. And during that time, and HP was no exception to the rule. HP faced, massive surprise and shocking elements. The surprise was that we saw headlines saying PC is dead. Printers, nobody is going to print in the future. Nobody is going to look at laptops again. People are very happy with the handheld devices. They're very happy with what a tablet can do, what a phone can do. Why do you need a laptop? Why do you need a printer? Now, a little, during that time, what we saw obviously during the lockdowns has been that you all must know printing just went crazy. People just started printing, and what was what was a B2B printing line, that was the vision that everybody had, that saying, oh, this will be the future of printing, 3D printing, B2B printing. What changed is the consumer printing. And that just changed the dynamics. And that's the same thing with laptops. Right now, again, there is another norm that's saying, oh, maybe the laptops that have all been purchased will go for a waste. But the reality is that what is interesting, and which is what I find it exciting to talk about, the hybrid model will not go away. I'm sure all of you in your offices may have already had the talks or already the discussion on how what was called a flexibility is going to change or is going to not change, or the fact that how you will work during the coming days and the weeks and the months when the offices in different countries will start opening up. What is interesting again is the fact that I have been going back to work, right, in the last few weeks. And what I find is that my office looks as good as new. And that's not just because it's a new office or anything. It's not. It's a very old office. But the interesting part is that the office has been, completely changed in terms of the fact that I have never seen my office without people in it. Now it's an empty space. Very few people have come back to work. Everybody is asking each other, what would this mean? Like, I was on a 12 a.m. call this, midnight, and I was on a 6 a.m. call. Will these things also need to continue when I'm back to work? And the kind of anxiety people have, right? With the new with the second version of the new normal or the hybrid model is interesting, because that is what I think we've at least been reinforcing. And I think the industry has also learned tremendously that the way forward is the hybrid model, which is basically we need to coexist. We need to figure out a balance. We need to figure out a way to make it happen. And that example is so apt for the automation world, the hybrid model. There is no way that we can say, oh, all of it is going to still continue or the way it was, or no, the whole thing will change into the new normal. No, they will need to find a balance. There are things that people used to do. There are things that a bot does and an automation does. And we need to strike that balance. And we need to figure out the spaces that we need bots for and the spaces we don't. There are just so many use cases there. In fact, from the last time I think, my introduction was done to now, in fact, I was just listening to it. My role has changed. I no longer manage that vertical, which is the P2P vertical for automation. I now am responsible for driving automation across the entire finance organization in HP. What we are doing is we are equipping, it's a massive task. The idea is that every single employee needs to automate, because we believe that the way this will have to happen, again, going back to the hybrid model terminology that I just used a few minutes ago, we need to coexist. Automations will need to be embraced from people, even in a field like finance, where people think, oh, I don't think I need to automate. Or from people who have done, like, say, certain areas where they think there is no way an automation can come here. We are questioning, we are going and breaking those norms, and we're saying, yes, there is things that you still do where you need to change your perspective. So the automation per se, the scale has suddenly changed. And this is an area, again, I didn't expect. This is a surprising and a shocking element. So we used to build some more fancy bots and backend automations that we used to do, which would like cover the end-to-end process. And we used to envision that, hey, in the next couple of years, the strategy building used to be that we will automate the end-to-end for finance in this vertical and that place and that side. What has happened now? Now what has happened is the priorities changed, and that's what I'm focusing on. The priority is now, how do you make them into such small automations that everybody can have it? It's like having an assistant. It's like having an extension to Meera. Why wouldn't I want it? I only have 24 hours in a day. I need to spend it with my family. I need to do my work. Work never reduces, right? It only increases. How can I reduce the things that maybe I don't want to do every day? Things like opening that tracker and having a few things being completed, or just that approval flow. It's like having a digital assistant. It's like having a small little mini me, which can do the few tasks where I can actually concentrate on things that I'm actually passionate about, like being here today. I'm passionate about this, so I'm sharing my knowledge with you, because I feel that is what is the hybrid approach that we need to take. We need to understand that my role will continue, and my job will only keep expanding. My workload is never going to go down. While we discuss it till till everybody can go home, the reality is the workload is not going to come down. But how can I reduce that space, and I can actually concentrate on things that I like doing, and things that need my judgment, things that need me to be there. So the bots have become even smaller scale and magnified scale. In the same context with HP as well, what you see now is the fact that we've had bots that are there that are are there in the factory for the BCP, which means that if all in the future, again, there are lockdowns or whatever, I hope there aren't. I just keep believing in the word power somehow. And what the reality is that we don't know whether that will happen or not. But from a BCP or a cybersecurity or a data privacy, the thresholds have been questioned in the last 2 years. And in each of these spaces, there's a heavy investment in time, effort, new strategies to be in place. One of the strategies for BCP is to have a center which can operate even when things go down, because the supply and the demand don't change, right? So what do you do then? You need to ensure you meet it. That's the only way an organization will sustain, and will be able to sustain to pay its employees, will be able to sustain to show profit to the shareholders. So that is a model that needs to exist. I took a little longer on that slide. The idea here is what you see here made it to the New York Times in the first few pages, saying 30 years apart, the same factory. And this is what I'm talking about. This is what even HP has invested in, trying to figure out how BCP can work. And most of the organizations, right? The interesting part is the designer brands, which was very surprising. I never thought that would be the demand during the pandemic, but apparently some of the designer brands vouch for the fact that it was a touchless process through and through the entire manufacturing, and people just bought it, right? I mean, people just bought it because they were like, all right, this is a touchless process. I'm willing to invest on that brand because this brand stands by me. And we'll touch upon the brand as well in a bit. Areas that I was talking about where, again, automation, that 5% threshold being questioned constantly. What you see here is the fact that, we never thought, like, say, a simple thing like, just sanitizing your hands or taking temperature are jobs that we never thought would go away. We thought more or less, like, say, a very high precision surgeries is what will happen through automation. But the reality is that this is where the questioning has happened. This is where the demand, supply, plus the reality of the situation, there were bots. There were bots installed in hospitals, in places where we knew that there needed to be social distancing, where there needed to be, the safety measures being taken into accounts. Again, what you would also wonder is that how all of this, is something that can happen. At least personal, from my experience and what I'm seeing in the other organizations, whenever I'm interacting with everybody, is the fact that it is a tops-down driven thing. It's something that people are believing very, very strongly about. From the CXOs to the fact that, everybody who's in the exec team believes strongly that automation needs to be a priority. And there was a time that there would be a pushback, but there is none. There is today a complete wholehearted acceptance that we need to, have automation as a part of our day-to-day lives. And that's how, like, a program, the scale that I am working on, where we're talking about, every single employee building their bots and everything is happening. Now, what does that mean? That's a bottoms-up approach as well, right? We want every employee to realize that they don't and shouldn't be, doing transactional or foundational work. They should try and, reduce their effort again on, say, things that don't need their effort on. But what could they rather spend time on? Things which they need to do: insights, cognitive, analytics, plus decision making, plus understanding what this data is talking about, what are the anomalies that will come into this play, what are the exceptions that happens to a data set like this. And with that, what I have personally seen is a negative image reversed. Automation used to be a threat to a large extent. It has been reversed, at least to a great extent, when we see to the exec teams, whether to the leadership teams, because earlier presentations and proposals were that of, hey, you need to invest in this, it will pay in a few years, you will see it, prepare an ROI chart, then they will say predict it further and do something. There used to be a lot of back and forth. Now I see that that image has changed. That thought process has changed. It's like, oh, how do I get there faster? How can we make this happen by the end of this year? How can we, continue to do this? And at a time when everybody has just too much on their plate, everybody, and I speak this from my experience because we hear this constantly, email fatigue is kicking in, meeting fatigue is kicking in, Zoom fatigue is kicking in. At a time like that, still people are willing to make an investment. Why would that happen? That is because I have seen that there was this thought process that maybe, bots are going to take away my job, right? They're going to throw me out of my own workspace, or that I will land up fighting with them, right? Headstorm fights, or the fact that, tomorrow in the future, a bot is going to possibly take away the job that would have been mine otherwise, or my kids for that matter, or the fact that, we are going to land up seeing combating with bots because we will land up fighting for our survival. We'll land up fighting for everything because there's just these extreme point of views that come in, right? That's called the automation anxiety. And what we still see with certain people, right? Whether, when the tops down approach has obviously the mindsets have changed, and that is why the negative image has been reversed. but there is still an automation anxiety. Like, oh, can I build a bot? Or will I understand what it means to have an automated factory? Will my workers understand how to operate it? Will there not be, like, say, a misuse of it, and the cost of it could be enormous? A lot of anxiety, a lot of anxiety on the automation space. And that is where the only way to change that is by upskilling. When I say upskilling, one of the important things for ourselves is to equip ourselves with the right knowledge, with the right awareness. And in this case, the way I feel, even people who feel even today, if there are people out there who feel like, oh, what would happen to my job? Even if there is still that anxiety, you need to know your solution is an upskill. And that's again the biggest learning of the last 2 years, I feel. Based on which space do you come from? What's your experience? What has been so far your, skill sets? What has been your knowledge? Like what did you learn when, say, you did this in your past life while you were educating yourself, or what did you do in your past roles? It doesn't matter. Everybody looked back on their entire careers, their personal growth, and they tried listing down saying, oh, I can definitely pick these few skills. And in the last 2 years, learning has been enormous. Not just personal learning, but learning in general has been enormous. People have been taking out the time to go and get that certificate, which they couldn't otherwise. People have been investing in themselves to say, I need to understand this better. Organizations are saying our employees need to understand this better, and they need to coexist with these few things. Like in case of automation, the way that we are making everybody build a bot is by training them. So we show them baby steps. We show them the first step of saying, this is what an automation can do, the art of possible. We slowly want to open their minds to it, to say, this is what an automation can do for you. As an employee, it needs to open the point of view. Once an employee starts to embrace it, because top has already embraced it, once the employees also start embracing it, what's going to happen is the shift of the way I look at issues. Even a conversation in a staff meeting can change. Saying, why are you doing this? This is not a priority, or this is a priority, but this is something that's mundane. Why are you doing it? Get that out of your way. Finish it up with a bot. These are conversations that are shifting. These are conversations that need to shift. And we are seeing that huge space. Again, places we never thought was possible is happening. So we are doing that with upskilling. I know for a fact across the industry and across the globe, learning has just, taken off, has just absolutely propelled in the right direction. I love it because even my 8-year-old daughter learned quite a few skills, which I don't think was possible. And I thought you needed a teacher for it, or you needed like a mentor for it, or a one-on-one coaching for it. Amazingly, she picked up everything because she just put her mind to it. Same thing I did. I decided things like at a personal level, I never thought I could meditate. The noise and the quietness around me made me meditate. Things that are, again, barriers, things that were mindsets, or things that we withheld, saying we can't do this. And the same thing is happening in organizations. People think, oh, I can't understand technology. I don't understand my laptop. What will I understand technology? People have started embracing the change. People have started saying, oh, I see the value in this. I see a proposal in this. People who used to say, oh, come on, do you really think, the solution to say one side going down is finding, bots or automation as a solution? People never thought of it. People used to just say, oh, this side goes down, that side will come up, that side goes down, this side will come up. The strategies have changed. The mindset has changed. So that is what is interesting. And if you look at it, I personally believe that there are a few skill sets we all have, and which is why we are unique. And things that I feel, bots can maybe hopefully when I say maybe, and hopefully this will take a long time for them to understand, right? Things that are creativity, innovation. I just recently, I think I was watching a documentary in which said you're only creative when you go through something life changing. If you look at the greatest artist of history, they did what they did because they went through some situation in their lives. Either they were, they were born that way, or the fact that they had some really terrible things that happened to them. But creativity is a very interesting aspect of us, and what we do, like the same road you travel to work, there are sometimes you bring up your creativity. The maps will show, hey, you need to take this path, but you see that there are some hurdles. You see that the traffic is changed. That creativity is yours, that innovation is yours. You change the road instantly. You come up with a new strategy midway through the road saying, I see that a path ahead is going to look much crazier. Let me just take this detour. That's a decision making. That's your innovating on the spot, which is what I feel we all humans have. And that is what is even needed today. For people who have the automation anxiety, notice that there are certain skill sets, no matter how much we train the automations to do, we'll never be able to do, at least not to the level that we do it today. Like suddenly the salt at home is over, you will get creative and maybe you'll add oregano or you will add something else because you know that that inherently has some salt. But that's not something that you can build certain thought process to it. You need to build the intelligence to it, or you need to add that artificial intelligence to it, but it's not something that inherently happens. Now, a strategic mindset, right? We have the whole vision sometimes to say, let's plan ahead. I know in the last 2 years, maybe most of our planning has gone out of the window, but the idea is that a strategic mindset is what is needed. And you can always invest in your strategic mindset. How do you make it, work for your organization, work for yourself, work for the space that you are in? Now, nothing hurts being data savvy. You always want to invest in spaces which are worth investing in priorities that need your time. So having that data on your side only helps, only guides you in the right direction. Having the knowledge, the right knowledge and the business acumen is something that I don't think I need to emphasize at all, because all of us have areas that we come from, our area of expertise, and that's important. Don't be under the impression to hold it back that, oh, if I share my knowledge, I'm going to lead into a situation where it's out there. No, your business acumen, even when you share it with somebody spending a full month, the person is not going to be the same as you. You are still you, and that's just because your experience will come into picture, your thought process will come into picture. Use that to propel it, use that to help you build further. And the same with relationship management, things that, again, hybrid work style, I will go back to what we go back to work for. You will go back to work, like I have been going back to work, to build on that relationships, to have those problem solving challenges which a Zoom meeting will not be able to do it. You know that. And that's where I would go there. I'm not going to go there, sit on a Zoom for the next 8 hours and sort it out. The agility and the change orientation, again, something that we have learned to be agile and to be open to change. So these are some things that I feel are, things that we need for sure. The roles that exist today, I'm not going to go much into the details. My typical discussion also ends with the fact that, like I spoke at the start of the discussion, an organization needs to identify what the brand is for. If you're a leader, please know that you need to stick by what your brand is for. There are brands out there that people would invest more in, even if there is the same quality of a product that's available for a lesser price. Why? Because it's a brand. It's what they believe in. It's what they stand for. If there are brands out there, like I know for a fact, certain people just boycott certain companies, saying, I will not buy this brand because they do not stand by the values that I have as a human. So as a leader, you need to know this and you need to stick by it. Also realize the kind of relationship, the positive contribution, and the global impact that you're going to create, because that is absolutely needed. With that, I think I just would like to, I just realized we are almost in the last 2 minutes, and I will try to wrap this up as a session. Sustainable transformation. The previous slide, by the way, is one of the presentations that have happened. I will just go back and I will just touch upon it because I brought this up. It's a colorful slide. But the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, the prediction is that automation and the entire industry has to become sustainable. And these are one of the goals that have been listed as well. So each of us, even though we are in a different, we feel we are in the exact opposite area of expertise, we will have to think of the way we can make everything sustainable. How do we make sure that we still achieve a goal as a world that we live in, so that we leave a better world for the future generation? And with that, I end with a quote that a sustainable transformation will be digital, a digital transformation will be sustainable. And that's something that we all need to embrace and accept. I hand it back to you.
Yeah, so thank you, Meera. Thank you for valuable insights. So now we are in the QA session. Please, ladies and gentlemen, unmute yourself. Go ahead with the query.
Okay.
Yeah, so
please.
Meera, this is the certificate of honor. Just it is a token of thanks for your valuable insight and valuable time. So definitely we are going to provide you on mail also later. But now this is what we want to show. That is a certificate of honor. Thank you for joining and thank you for your presentation, Meera. Your
Thank you. Thank you
presentation
so
was
much for
really.
having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.